we have a mysterious new kid on the block. Astronomers call it Oumuamua, which in Hawaiian roughly translates to first-time visitor from far away.
A more exotic scenario is that Oumuamua may be a fully operational probe sent intentionally to Earth vicinity by an alien civilization.
What about that thing that's tumbling towards our solar system? It's going 195,000 miles an hour, I think. It's a long cigar object, and the Harvard paper did something on it, and CNN talked about it. What is that?
They said it could be an alien probe.
Alien origin.
However,
I'm not authorized to comment further on that.
It was a special day when this object was first discovered. We have been waiting for the discovery of an interstellar object for decades, basically.
Well, when I first heard about this interstellar object, it was very exciting just from a scientific point of view that finally there's been an actual observation of such an object.
Here's why it's important. It's the first ever object known to be hurtling in from outside our solar system. In other words, it is not gravitationally bound to the sun. Whereas everything else that we have discovered, comets, asteroids, planets, are all attached to the sun's gravitation.
Is that why it's going so fast, Sam?
Yes. Because if you're coming in from outer space,
right,
beyond our solar system, you're going to have speeds that are in excess of anything the sun could contain. And so if you give Earth that speed, we would then escape and go to another solar system.
So
this object is simply a piece of another solar system that was expelled, and it has been traveling through interstellar space for hundreds of millions of years, billions of years, we don't know.
We are saying that this is the very first interstellar object, an object that came from outside the solar system that we have seen near the Earth. And it looks nothing like the asteroids or comets that we have seen before in the solar system. It has an extreme shape. It deviated from an orbit that is shaped just by the sun's gravity. And it looks shiny and quite unusual. So we say perhaps it was manufactured by some alien civilization. Perhaps it is a spaceship or a probe. We have to put that possibility on the table. Unfortunately, this special guest that we had for dinner already left our house, and it's out there in the dark street, so we can't really see it anymore. But we can look for other guests that came from that foreign country and perhaps study them much better in the future.
All I got is my heart.
From the observations we have so far, it looks like it's a very elongated object, maybe about a quarter mile in length.
We think this object, 2017 U1, is very long, perhaps 400 meters or so long, and very narrow, skinny, perhaps maybe 40 meters or so in the other dimensions. That's a very unusual shape. We don't see that in our solar system. None of the asteroids in our solar system look like that. So it's very puzzling how it could have obtained this shape.
We also see that it's very reddish in color, which indicates that it's been possibly in space a long time and irradiated by not only the light from our sun, but other suns as well.
What you're talking about, the picture they've shown of it is an artist's rendering. That's not some photo.
Oh. That sucks.
That totally sucks. And so
they just said, "Hey man, what do you think it would look like?" And he's like, "I don't know, kind of like the Millennium Falcon."
I know. So the actual thing is like this tiny little dot in a larger photo, fuzzy, grainy photo. So here's the thing. What made it an interesting object to justify a paper by two of my colleagues is that its speed and its trajectory are not quite fully accounted for by the gravity we already know is operating within our solar system.
The first hint that something wasn't quite normal with this object came in the form of a very unique light curve that showed that Oumuamua brightened and dimmed relatively rapidly as it moved through the solar system. Initially, this was thought to be due to Oumuamua being a very elongated object that was tumbling, essentially a cigar shape that reflected more light at times as it rotated about once every 8 hours.
The sun, Jupiter, the big, strong-armed gravitational attractors there. And so if it has a path that is not entirely explained by known sources of gravity. Maybe it's got some propulsion going on in it.
Right. I see.
So
Somebody fired it.
So if it's got some propulsion, maybe it has agency. It's got control, either from some distant place or from within. Okay.
Well, in science, it's very hard to say it's outright not possible, but I think extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And in the paper that came out last week, they effectively are suggesting that solar radiation pressure is a better explanation for the acceleration seen as opposed to cometary outgassing. And they calculated the same mass to area ratio that we had already published in June. But they went further and made the step. They also talked about the strength, which reproduced much of the work that was done before. But then they came at the end to the conclusion that therefore this must be a thin sheet of material, namely a solar sail. Well, first of all, you really do have to have extraordinary evidence if you're going to make that claim. And secondly, if you can imagine it, a solar sail is very much shaped like a thin sheet of paper. And the thin sheet of paper would not have given the rotational light curve that we saw, because if you imagine the thin sheet of paper when it's face on to you, it'll be reflecting a lot of light, and then when it's edge on, there will be virtually no light, and that's vastly different from the 10-to-1 light curve that we saw. So all of the scientists I've talked to say there's absolutely no way to reproduce the light curve with a solar sail. It's nice to be speculative, and I'm sure all the astronomers would be excited to detect evidence of alien civilization, but I'm pretty sure that this is not it.
That Oumuamua may instead be of artificial alien origin. That is not to say that it is. It probably isn't, but simply that it cannot be ruled out. But the story of Oumuamua grew even stranger in late June of 2018. In a paper by Marco Micheli and colleagues, they detail the discovery that Oumuamua accelerated as it left the inner solar system. Accelerated is perhaps too strong of a word here. It's more like Oumuamua left the solar system less slowly than it should have, given the gravitational effects on it from the sun. This would seemingly have a mundane answer, that Oumuamua was in fact a comet, even though it didn't entirely look like one. Cometary outgassings can act as a kind of natural thruster and impart a bit more speed to an object than the effects of gravity alone can account for. The problem is no such outgassing was observed with Oumuamua. It could possibly be that we simply missed it when it happened, or that it was imperceptibly slow, or that the outgassing was difficult to detect with the data we have, such as outgassing from pure water ice. But that still should have blown off dust which should have been detectable. And there's another issue. Given Oumuamua's odd shape, any outgassing should have upset its tumbling, and that should have been detectable, though it's also possible that the outgassing came from a point on the object where it wouldn't have changed anything. But more recent research by Rafikov shows that it's likely that any kind of outgassing should have changed Oumuamua's rotational torque enough to destroy it. They detail the results of an observation, or more precisely, a non-observation, of Oumuamua using the Spitzer Space Telescope. By non-observation, I mean that they looked for the object in infrared and didn't see it. That in itself is telling because they should have. It means that Oumuamua must be very small, on the order of hundreds of meters in size. This is odd indeed, because to have been seen at all in the earlier observations, it would require Oumuamua to be very highly reflective, unusually so. As Oumuamua revealed itself to be an increasingly strange object, the notion that it may be of alien origin has been increasingly looked at, remote though that possibility is. SETI teams, for example, just to be sure, listened to Oumuamua for radio emissions. None were detected, and while it's highly unlikely for this object to be of artificial origin, it's very likely a weird natural object, accumulated weirdness surrounding this object is raising some eyebrows. In a paper by Abraham Loeb of Harvard, he details 6 of these strange attributes of this object. He points out that Oumuamua should have never been discovered in the first place. This is based on an earlier paper co-authored by Loeb, where it was predicted that the abundance of interstellar asteroids would be too small for it to be likely that we'd just happen to catch such an object serendipitously, as happened with Oumuamua, meaning that whatever spawned Oumuamua must be more common than what we see with our own solar system. Loeb also points out that Oumuamua originates from a very weird frame of reference. the LSR, or Local Standard of Rest. He goes on to point out that this is ideal if you want to camouflage an object if you want to hide its origins, though it's also possible that Oumuamua has just been wandering so long in the galaxy that it simply settled into this frame of reference.